Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are today. Thanks for joining our weekly live digital transformation discussion to talk about all things related to digital transformation. Today's topic that we're going to cover is the future of manufacturing technology beyond ERP. So we're going to talk about how manufacturing technology is changing, how it's evolving, and how it's moving away from the traditional monolithic, single one-size-fits-all monolithic ERP model. And we're going to talk about what that means for manufacturers, the things that manufacturers should be thinking about as they navigate their digital transformations. And I'll introduce our guest in just a moment, who I'm excited to have on the show. But before I introduce our guest, just a couple quick logistical things. We do these live discussions every week, and the reason we do these live is so that we can get questions from you, the audience. So any questions or comments you have, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, what trends you're seeing in manufacturing technology, what questions you have about manufacturing tech. Anything, predictions you have for the future, anything you want to chat about. That's what we're here for. And I've got my questions to start this conversation, but really would love to hear your questions and comments as well. Speaking of the comment in the chats, we're streaming to all various different types of platforms. So we've got an eye on the chat here. Any questions that pop up, we'll be sure to get to those. And in the meantime, just drop in the chat, what city and country are you joining from? Would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts on where in the world you're joining. What city and country are you joining from here today? So thank you all for being here. And to help us unpack this conversation of the future of manufacturing technology beyond ERP is Sanjay Brahmawar. I knew I was going to butcher that as soon as we went live. Sanjay, I'll call you Sanjay from here on out. How about that? Sanjay, I guess there's a lot worse things I could call you than just Sanjay, right? But this is Sanjay, the CEO of QAD Software. So Sanjay, thanks for being here today.
Well, Eric, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And don't worry, I mean, it's a very unusual last name. But you got it right the second time. Brahmawar is perfectly fine. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So thank you again for being here. This is the first time that we've had this formal podcast conversation. You and I have spoken a number of times in the past, but never in this exact format. But a lot of people may not know who you are. A lot of people may not know who QAD is. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because you are relatively new in the CEO role at QAD. QAD has been around for a long time, but it's sort of pivoting on its strategy and product roadmap. So tell us a little bit about you, and then I want to ask you a little bit about QAD, and then we'll get into some of the general manufacturing tech questions I've got for you.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, listen, it's almost about 6 months since I joined QAD in March. And so relatively still in some ways new, but it's been fantastic, very exciting. I've managed to meet the entire company and got out on the road, met more than 75 customers. So really hearing from our clients. Now, prior to QAD, I was the CEO of another software company, Software AG, integration and database technology company. And I was the CEO there for 6.5 years. And I took that company through quite a major transformation from a company that had a lot of heritage and history, being born in 1969, but took that and modernized the product portfolio, changed the business model to subscription SaaS, and then took the company back to growth. So that was kind of prior to QAD. And then before Software AG, I was at IBM for about 16 years. And I tell you, through that entire period, my focus has been manufacturing, industrial sector. I really engaged with, aerospace, automotive, oil and gas, discrete manufacturing. So manufacturing is where my heart is. In fact, at the age of 21, I literally started my career on the shop floor in Honda, kind of really understanding how to assemble engines and really learning what it takes to run a plant. And, it's not always a perfect plan that does things. It's, it's how you react and how you respond and how you execute. So that's kind of a little bit. And on a personal front, I'm married. I've got two boys, 19 and 16.
Yeah, great. Well, great to have you here. And it sounds like you've been brought in. This isn't the first time you've been brought in to change a business model or pivot on the direction that a software company is going. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about, maybe for those that don't know QAD or don't know it well, tell us about the history of QAD and what you're doing. That's really, it's pretty interesting what you're doing right now. Really exciting to see. But tell us a little bit about the evolution of where QAD was and its history and where you're taking it now.
Yeah. I have to say, look, it was my love for manufacturing that attracted me to QAD when I was approached. And I have to say QAD's got an amazing history. We're born in the 70s, and just born from a perspective that at that time, most ERPs were very horizontal, thinking about, mostly around the processes across the organization, but none of them were really focused on manufacturing, focused on the bill of material, really think about how you bring goods in, how you manufacture goods, how you ship them out. And so that's how QAD was born. It was born with that focus, that maniacal attention to how do you really serve the manufacturing community, and how do you help them produce effectively, produce efficiently, have goods manufactured and delivered in time. So that is those are the roots of QAD. And the first kind of, let's say, vertical that QAD focused on was automotive. So literally, almost every tier 1, tier 2 automotive supplier that you can think about, has QAD in some form or shape. And so we are very, very dominant in the automotive space. And then from there, QAD obviously diversified into certain other verticals like discrete manufacturing, food and beverage, life sciences, high tech, etc. And so that's kind of sort of the roots and the origins. And over a period of time, we have acquired more capabilities to be able to serve our clients across different dimensions. And in one of our recent acquisition a couple of years ago has been RedZone. RedZone is the world's #1 connected workforce system, which basically really, translates collaboration and information sharing with the frontline worker into real productivity, real compliance, real learning on the shop floor. So it's really empowering the frontline worker. And so the combination of that, along with the adaptive ERP that we have, that's a very strong combination to serve clients. So that's kind of sort of the history. And I guess where I come in is to be able to take that great heritage and that great history, that domain expertise, and now help manufacturers where we have like once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to really drive manufacturing into the age of agentic AI, into the age of systems of actions rather than systems of record. So that's what we are doing with QAD. We are pretty much moving manufacturing from a systems of record to a systems of action. And my vision is that where every frontline worker, every machine, and every decision drives outcome. And just to kind of close it, we have 3 pillars in our manufacturing platform. The first pillar is RedZone, that empowers the frontline workforce, which is a connected workforce solution. The second pillar is adaptive. These are ERP, which is basically the intelligent digital backbone. And then the third pillar is what we are introducing now, which is called Champion AI, and that is agentic AI that amplifies the human potential. So this together, these 3 pillars, they form our manufacturing platform, and that's where we are taking QAD to be able to support our clients.
It's interesting because I didn't hear the word ERP. So where does ERP fit in this roadmap, or how does it fit in the overall roadmap for QAD?
Yeah, so I mean the second pillar actually is what we call adaptive, which is our ERP. So
adaptive.
It is basically the manufacturing ERP. But the big change that we see happening, Eric, is we want to kind of create a much more engaging system for our clients, for the manufacturing users, so that is more a system of action rather than one where you are going through multiple UI screens to be able to do these several transactions, and it's kind of more like a systems of record. So the Champion AI basically offers this agentic layer, and it allows our users to be able to interact with the ERP through agents, and through agents that would do some simple, basic, mundane tasks in the system for them, agents that would help them solve very complicated issues like inventory, carrying cost optimization, or agents that would help them implement the system much faster. So that is kind of the way we have tied the 3 together, RedZone, adaptive, the ERP, and Champion AI, the agentic layer.
Yeah. So when you talk about adaptive ERP and adaptive applications in general, what does adaptability mean in terms of manufacturers that are always going through change? They've got tariff issues for those that are based in North America, supply chain disruptions, geopolitics and wars, and things that create difficulty managing a supply chain and manufacturing shop. So what does that mean? What does adaptability mean in your view?
Yeah, I think you pointed out very rightly. The entire manufacturing community, that they're experiencing a tremendous amount of change. You think about all the geopolitical changes, the tariffs, the many other supply chain challenges or shifts in the supply chains. Those are kind of factors that are not in the control of the manufacturers, and so therefore adaptive systems or adaptive applications are ones that can sense, learn, and respond at pace. So it shouldn't take months and years to implement changes. It should be systems should be able to respond in hours instead of weeks. Should be able to make the changes that are needed in that system to be able to deal with changing parameters or changing inbound conditions. And that is exactly how we are delivering adaptive, to be able to first of all make changes very quickly. And what we have built is a methodology to deploy an adaptive implementation in 90 days. That's a greenfield situation. But even in a brownfield situation, we can do that in a matter of months rather than what it normally takes years to deploy. So that is what we mean by adaptive.
Gotcha. Yeah, very interesting. And it's interesting how your strategy is so focused on not only some emerging tech trends in general, like the adaptability, the obviously the AI piece of it, but you're very much focused on manufacturing. And I know that's your personal passion as well as QAD's. The QAD, as you mentioned, has a pretty rich history of doing manufacturing types of technologies. Quick question for the audience. I'd love to hear from the audience what trend in the manufacturing tech space you're most excited about, or you think is the most high value for the time, at least in the short term. I think longer term is a little bit harder to predict, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. And before I get into these other questions, Sanjay, just a real quick plug for an event you guys are hosting. So QAD is hosting this event. I'm going to put up a QR code here. This is Champions of Manufacturing. It's a series of events that you're hosting throughout the world. You mentioned before we went live that you were just finished up one of these Champions of Manufacturing conferences in Europe, and now you've got one coming up in Dallas in the southern United States in November, was it 12th and 13th, I believe it is, or 13th and 14th?
Correct.
Mid-November. So, but if you scan this QR code, it'll give you the exact dates and the registration and everything. Tell us a little bit about this conference and what kind of stuff, what kind of content are you guys covering in this event?
Oh yeah, well, thank you very much for introducing that, Eric. We just completed our Champions of Manufacturing in Brussels, and when we were thinking about what is the current challenge that manufacturers are facing, you talked about some of these macro things, but I really think about it like it's a once in a lifetime change, or it's almost like a watershed moment that manufacturing is facing. There's a lot of investment coming into manufacturing. It's almost 2 to 3 trillion if you look at the US market itself. So there's a lot of attention. Governments are considering manufacturing to be very critical, both from a security point of view, but also from a national economy point of view. And so while there's a lot of this investment that's coming in, the challenge, of course, is that there is a gap between the opportunity and the capacity. There's almost 500,000 open jobs in manufacturing in the US today. This could be almost 2 million by 2030. So the paradox is actually, while capacity is, or let's say, while funding or money is flowing in, capacity is lacking. So it's ambition and execution, the gap is widening. Now, we believe that manufacturers actually have 3 choices really. One is they could retrain and reskill their current worker, or let's say their current employees. Bit challenging because it takes time. Of course, it's very essential, but then also 30% of the workforce is above the age of 50. So also this is not an easy task. The second thing is you could deploy more robotics, capital intensive, but also quite rigid. And then the third thing is you can bring in the leverage of AI and agentic capabilities to be able to create more productivity, more efficiency out of your existing systems and the people. And that is where we are focused. And so when we thought about that, we said that is the theme that we want to take forward. And we want to bring these capabilities to be able to make the manufacturers champions. And hence came the word Champions of Manufacturing. So at this event, and we just did this in Brussels as the first run, we are bringing together, the industry challenge, the three, kind of topics that are talked about. How do you address that productivity gap? What are the specific activities that would be supporting our manufacturers? How does the manufacturing platform, the new the 3-pillar platform that we talked about, support our clients? And then we've got some real life examples and demos to be able to show these new capabilities to our clients. We have some existing clients who've been using the manufacturing platform, and they talk about their experiences of using Champion AI, using Redzone, and Adaptive. And so that's kind of all the things that we are bringing to the Champions of Manufacturing. And for Dallas, the other thing that we have is we have quite a lot of industry experts coming and joining us, and they are on stage talking about what are the real developments in. So we have people from kind of industry experts as well as tech experts who will share their views with our clients.
Nice, very cool. Yeah, so yeah, scan the QR code here, and we'll also drop a link in the chat below, in case you don't want to scan that, or if you want to refer to it later as well. But you can scan that there, see the agenda, see some of the speakers that are going to be there. I'm going to be there, so I'm looking forward to seeing you and your team there as well. So it promises to be a good event. Here's a question from Brian on LinkedIn. Brian says, can you talk about the importance of PLM? So PLM is product lifecycle management, and MES, manufacturing execution systems, in complementing the traditional ERP scope. How are you guys viewing that, and how do you think those two important pieces of manufacturing are coming together with ERP systems?
Absolutely. I think great question, Brian. I mean, the way we have been thinking about it is in an open system that actually engages with the ecosystem that our manufacturers have. It is not, we know that it's not a situation where our clients and the manufacturers have only QAD or only one system. They have a sort of a landscape of different systems that they use. So they have a PLM, they have an MES, they have an ERP, they could have a connected workforce solution. The way we've designed Champion AI is that layer, that agentic layer, is able to interact openly with any system that our clients are using. So, for example, it will interact with PLM to get data that is associated with product or with the design or with with the existing capabilities. It will interact with MES and pull data out that would be able to be presented to the worker on the shop floor at the point where the work is being done. The old way of thinking of this was tons of reports and views that were created and were then provided to a supervisor, who then had to have a discussion with the worker on the particular point where the problem might have occurred. So it could be like a couple of weeks go by the time a root cause analysis gets done and you actually understand what the issue is. Now with Redzone, you're pulling in all the information from your ERP, from your MES, from your from your PLM, etc. You're bringing that information in a very cogent way to your frontline worker on an iPad or an Android device. And there and then the problem can be addressed and can be looked into. So, we're flipping it over from like system of record to a system of action, and thereby kind of creating that pace of resolution and action within. So the role that, the way we look at it is, these systems are all essential. They need to talk to each other, and the integration needs to be seamless. That should not be a constraint, and that's the way we've designed Champion AI.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's interesting to see how ERP in general seems to be evolving from that system of record to more of what you call system of action. Of course, the AI components, the integration of multiple systems. I think that's the reality of where a lot of organizations are going, is that composable ERP route, which is kind of falls right in the line of what you guys are focused on. So another follow-up question here then for you, Sanjay, is how about you talked a little bit about Redzone and that acquisition you guys made a couple of years ago, which brings up the question of frontline workers. How do the tools that software vendors like yourselves provide, how do they bridge the gap between work and productivity and then just the broader enterprise performance?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Redzone is really special. I think Redzone is where the systems and the working of the frontline workers, that performance and information that comes together. And it's a capability that takes collaboration and turns that into real productivity impact, or let's say real productivity gains. And so Redzone effectively covers four areas. It covers productivity, it covers compliance, it covers reliability, and then very importantly, learning. And so with these four capabilities, you're able to turn the shop floor literally into a continuous learning environment, and an environment where we're really empowering the frontline worker to be able to do a lot more and make a lot more decisions without having the necessity to go through many loops. And so that's the way we feel that it is very kind of very beneficial to be able to take all that data and all that information that resides in an ERP or an MES or other systems, but make that visible and actionable by the frontline workers, whether it's in the form of an OEE, or it's in the form of a schedule that they have to follow, or it's a downtime and a changeover that they have to do. Everything is like literally served to the worker to enable them, frontline worker, to be able to enable them to be more effective and productive. So that's kind of our way of serving. Now, Redzone is deployed in over 1,700 plants across the US. It's going to be more than 2,000 by the beginning of next year. And we have more than 650,000 frontline workers who are using Redzone daily to make decisions, to prioritize. We ran something like 6 million production runs, and we benchmark them every year. And we have recorded 26% productivity increase on average, 81% more employee engagement on average, and 35% lesser employee churn or employee attrition. So these gains are so significant, and it just goes to show that kind of thinking system of action, that kind of engagement with your employee on the front line is so crucial and beneficial.
Yeah. Now, what about a lot of what you're alluding to here suggests different tools to perform different activities, and the key tenets of composable ERP or best of breed, whatever you want to call it. How do you balance that need for innovation and flexibility that a composable ERP model or a best of breed model enables, without creating too much technical complexity and too much of a technical sprawl, with having to manage too many systems or too many sources of truth or data sources, whatever the case may be? How do you see that unfolding?
Yeah, and I think, look, every company has a certain amount of investment they've done in their existing systems, whether these are systems that are recent or they are, kind of a bit more legacy. There is a certain amount of investment that's done. There's a certain amount of knowledge that exists in the organization. People are used to running with those systems. So, the case to move away from that investment and those systems to something completely new and like a 12 to 24 month of disruption to the business, there is no ROI for that. Really, there is no ROI. But there is a lot of value in taking an open layer like what we talk about, Champion AI, and being able to pull that data from these different systems that are being used today, where there is sunken investment, but making that accessible in the form of a way of action or a system of action. We believe that is a high value and a fast speed to value kind of way to serve our manufacturers. So our attention is not to go in and kind of we don't believe manufacturers need more tools. We believe they need better outcomes. And the way to deliver the outcomes is through a very thin, simple Champion AI layer, being able to pull information and data from where it exists today, not having to completely revamp that, but then being able to serve that to your frontline workers or to every employee in a much more efficient way.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, things have changed so much to where integration and multiple systems isn't quite as overwhelming or complex as it was 20 years ago. So now you've got more opportunities and more flexibility and more of a modular approach to to your enterprise tech strategy.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot of what you say, Eric, but I think companies are really thinking about this. What is the value that they get to expose their organizations to a 12 to 24 month disruption, but just changing the tech, and not getting so much real business value out of it, but just it's tech for the sake of modernizing the tech, but actually it's not really delivering any real immediate differentiation or advantage to them that they can actually win more in the market. None of that. So where is the business case? And I think that is what I think most business leaders are questioning today.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get to some more audience questions and comments here. This is, I want to say hello to Mina on LinkedIn, who says hello. Thank you for being here today, Mina. Let's see. Here's a comment from Mike on LinkedIn. Mike says QAD's focus on the CIO to push these pillars through the enterprise is so critical to building the right data foundation. So Mike is a believer. He's a believer in what you're saying here so far, Sanjay. And then here's a question from Brian on LinkedIn. Brian says, thanks, Sanjay. Given your history at IBM and Software AG, why do you think companies remain reluctant to invest in integration and process orchestration platforms?
Brian, great question. And I spent many years at Software AG really talking about integration to my clients and helping clients think through why integration is so critical. And the way we used to talk about it was very simple, is that, look, all organizations have applications that address the processes that they use in their organizations. But the fact is that these applications are no good without the right kind of data and being able to serve these applications with the right kind of information. And that only comes from different sources. No application has all the data that it needs to be able to effectively perform the activities that it is designed to support. So you need to be able to pull the data from different sources at the right time, at the right speed, and being able to serve the outputs. And that is what I call, integration as the glue. It's basically the layer that allows you to seamlessly move this data between your different, whether it is from an application or data warehouse to a cloud data warehouse to then serve it into an like a analytics application, whatever be the way and mechanism in which we are serving insights to our clients. Everything is served through making sure that integration is seamless. So when integration works, you don't realize, but when it doesn't work, you can see the complexity come through. And most organizations don't realize how much effort is going behind the scene to hide that complexity. So that's the way, I was having conversations with very large clients, who were running billions of transactions through our integration platform, helping them think through how critical integration is to be able to really serve those business outcomes.
Yeah, very interesting. Then Brian also had a follow-up question here, or follow-up comment and question. Not all manufacturers looking to implement an ERP have capable, predictable processes. When you have a customer with a lot of variance in their manufacturing processes, what advice do you have so that they have a successful implementation at go live?
Absolutely. This is exactly the thinking that we have as we design Champion Pace. Champion Pace is our 90-day implementation methodology for a mid-sized manufacturing plant. And the whole objective is it should not take more than 90 days to implement 80 to 85% of the core processes in manufacturing. Should be able to deploy a plant, should be able to get the plant to do the activities that they need to. But the whole thinking is where the plant has to be flexible, adaptive, and respond with pace. Because of the changes that are happening and the manufacturers having to respond to those changes at this kind of speed to maintain their profitability, to be able to ensure the production capacity, the systems have to be able to change very fast. It cannot be a process where it takes months to do a scoping and a design and a change of particular functionality. So the way we see adaptive and our ERP supported by Champion AI agentic layer is those changes can be incorporated into the system or into the agentic layer at pace. And I think for me, that is the main thing that manufacturers have to think about. are they going to be bound by the rigidity of their existing legacy systems, or are they going to invest in certain smart layers, example, our champion AI, where the legacy is there and they don't have to change everything, but they can pull the data out and be able to respond much faster and change things much faster.
Gotcha. Yeah, very, very good stuff. So when you look at the crowded technology landscape, especially you just mentioned the mid-market manufacturing companies, and it sounds like you've tailored a lot of your solution offering for the mid-market manufacturing space. Good news, bad news. The good news is there's a lot of manufacturers out there that need help with their technology initiatives. The bad news is there's also a lot of technological options and vendors out there that are providing different types of solutions for manufacturers. So what do you guys see as your differentiation, long-term edge, and how might that translate into what a manufacturer should be thinking about as they try to figure out which vendors are going to be the best fit for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very valid question, right? I mean, there are a lot of let's say there are a lot of experts out there, a lot of software companies that are offering solutions. I think from my perspective, I see, QAD's advantage or differentiation as our focus. We are 100% manufacturing focused. We're not a horizontal ERP. We're not a, vendor trying to fit every industry. We have chosen the spaces where we are deep, and we want to make sure that we support our clients with very deep and highly focused manufacturing understanding. So what does that mean effectively? That means that we really understand what are the different requirements in their industry, what are the different regulations, how do they have to run their processes, how do they do their operations. We have specific experts hired in our company that are actually speak exactly the same language. In fact, they're hired from most of our clients to be able to really understand their operations in depth. So that is and I believe that is a very core differentiation of QAD. And the second thing is, I think, our thinking around this converting from a systems of record to a systems of action with our manufacturing platform, which is Red Zone, empowering the frontline, adaptive as the intelligent backbone, and champion AI as amplifying the human potential. I think that is also very unique in terms of the way we see how we bring the power to the frontline in manufacturing. So I think those two, that focus and that manufacturing platform supporting our what I would call ideal customer profile is our differentiation.
Yeah. Very interesting. And there are a lot of vertically focused vendors, as you mentioned, that have some manufacturing capabilities. But when you get deep into it, especially if you're a complex manufacturer or engineer to order, it seems as though that focus is really important, because if you just can't be everything to everyone. So if you're going deep in one area, like a complex manufacturing environment, that's probably going to serve a manufacturing client a lot better in many cases.
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to come back to, I glossed over this, or I didn't get to this question that I had about AI. I know we were talking quite a bit about AI a few minutes ago, but when I think of AI, especially in manufacturing, and we're seeing this with a lot of our manufacturing clients when we compare them to our non-manufacturing clients, because manufacturers at their heart are, and this is a broad generalization, but they're pretty gritty, they're hands-on, blue collar. They like to build stuff. They aren't technologists, generally speaking. They're not technologists. They're not super into, all these buzzwords and things like that. But so when you introduce something like AI in that sort of environment, how do you blend, or how do you see AI coming together with human oversight and that transparency and trust of AI? How do you see that coming together so far? I know we're early in the journey I know you said a lot of clients are already starting to use these tools, but relatively speaking, they're still early in the adoption phase. But what early signs are you seeing as it relates to that?
I think this is such a great question. And the reason is that, honestly, Eric, there is so much of noise out there. There is, so much of, the AI word is like every sentence is beginning or ending with the AI word. So I think it is quite confusing for our manufacturing clients that basically want to, produce things, make things, and they want to make them more. They want to make them more efficiently. They want to make them with higher quality. They want to make sure that they are delivering things in time. They are meeting the requirements of their clients. And so that's where their attention and focus is. They are not So, kind of they're not spending hours and hours reading up all the buzzwords and all the technical differentiations between the different versions and, kind of like the applications and uses of AI. So I think what is absolutely essential when, particularly what we are practicing is as we're having conversations with our manufacturing clients is this is a show me, not a tell me. Okay, very simple. I have told my entire team, I said, we are not going to talk to our client about agentic AI and agents and this and that. No, we are just going to show our client how it works. These are manufacturing people. They want to see tangible, very clear, this is what it does, this is what it gives out, this is the difference, that was what it was doing in the past, this is what it's going to do in the future, that's how it helps you. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense, right? So that is how manufacturing people think in very logical terms. And so that is how we need to show the capability. And so what we've done is Champion AI is broken into 3 buckets of agents. Very simple. Bucket number 1 is what we call, we are calling it productivity agents, but I would say it is basically taking almost every profile or let's say persona within manufacturing and building a set of agents around that persona to take the mundane out of their day-to-day. So if you have a planner who has to negotiate 5 UIs in the ERP, has to create 6 reports and pull out some data, etc., to get ready to do the plan, the schedule, the changes, an agent does that for them. In the morning, they can start working on everything that has been pulled together and make decisions, right? So it takes away the mundane. So that's bucket number 1, agents. Bucket number 2 is what we say, we're going to pick up very complex problems and we're going to solve them. Complex problems that have material impact to the profitability or the productivity of the manufacturer. So we've chosen, like an example, number 1 problem is inventory carrying costs. How do we help the manufacturer reduce inventory carrying costs? Now, if you think about the costs in a manufacturing plant, you have your cost of your machinery, you have your cost of people. Potentially the 3rd largest cost is the cost of inventory carrying. So how do you address that? With the help of an agent across the entire end-to-end, you can think and understand exactly the variables, and you can come up with recommendations to adjust the replenishment parameters and how that can reduce inventory carrying costs. And now we run it with several clients, and we can show them 15 to 20% inventory carrying cost reduction. And that's tangible, that's very clear, they can see it run on their data, and they can decide whether that helps them. And then the last bucket of agents is implementation agents. If they are deploying a new plant, let's say it's a merger and acquisition situation, they acquire a company, they've got to bring this plant very quickly into their system, they need to deploy that plant in 90 days. That's based on agentic AI deployment methodology. Or they want to migrate an existing plant onto a newer version, should not take more than a couple of months. And that's, again, implementation methodology using agents. So those are the 3 simple buckets, and that's how we are showing agents in action to our clients. And I believe that's the way to, kind of dispel away from all of this noise, but get down to more tangible, real outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Do you see company, or when I say companies, I guess I'm talking now about more of the frontline employees. Do you guys and your team see people pushing back on AI because of some of the things you mentioned? There's a lot of hype and buzz around it. I think there's some AI fatigue probably. There's also the fact that, manufacturers like to build stuff. They're not as enamored by technology as maybe some other industries are, just as a generalization. And then also, I think the biggest thing that we see, and I'm curious to see if you're seeing this with manufacturers as well, is all the headline stories that a lot of mainstream media will latch onto around, big company XYZ laid off 10% of their workforce, and they're basically blaming AI or saying it's because of AI. They expect to get more savings from AI. I think a lot of times that's a cop out, or that's just more saying what they think investors want to hear. So I don't know how much is that is real, but I think it does create a perception with a lot of frontline employees like, oh, AI, I've heard about this, my job could be at risk, that sort of thing. Are you seeing that sort of fear in your client base yet?
I'll take the Brussels session that we did recently, where there were hundreds of clients that we had invited, both existing customers as well as prospects. And I can tell you one thing: there was a very high level of interest in Champion AI, very clearly. So I would say my takeaway from that session was, number 1, definitely the manufacturing community, the experts in manufacturing, they're all very keen because, they are, in some ways they are builders. So they are interested with everything that's going to help them build better, faster, cheaper, or more high quality. So they are interested in AI and what can AI do for them. Having said that, it is also a community that is very skeptical, very skeptical. So, they are very, very conscious that there's so much out there, so much noise. Is this really going to impact, or is it just going to be a lot of, kind of sort of backyard projects, taking away time and energy from their existing people? As it is, as I said, there's a severe shortage of manufacturing capacity.
Yeah.
So, when I finished the session in Brussels, at the end, I said clearly to the audience, I said, look, I appreciate and understand that there needs to be a level of skepticism in this room. Fully acknowledge that, and you need to, because otherwise you end up spending money, don't get an outcome. However, I also want to mention that there is a serious risk of inaction. And it's very clear there are going to be manufacturers that will take this technology today, agentic AI, and they are going to understand how it creates differentiation, creates better productivity, creates faster, more efficient, etc. And they're going to leverage it, and they're going to differentiate themselves, and they will be at an advantage. They may not get it perfect at the first shot. It might be 80%, 85%, but the way the technology is evolving, they are going to get an advantage. It's very simple. And then there will be others that will sit there and wait and want to observe and want to see. But by the time they really get to it, the gap is so wide, the people have gone forward. So I was very clear at the end of it. I said, look, there is a very serious cost of inaction. This genie's out of the bottle. There is no way this is going back. This technology is real. It's here and now. It is evolving very fast. And therefore, it's not something that you can do at a later stage. You need to understand how to leverage it to your advantage. And so that's kind of how I ended the conference. And after that, I was talking to many clients, and I think they all acknowledged that fact. They all said, yes, we do understand, Sanjay, there is a risk of inaction here.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. What about manufacturers that face, not just efficiency gains or opportunities to be more efficient, but then you look at other business benefits and areas of business value that manufacturing tech can provide, things like sustainability, traceability, compliance. How are you guys viewing your product strategy to support those sorts of benefits in addition to the efficiency gains and productivity gains that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, all of those aspects are absolutely essential when manufacturers think about, how they do things. I think one of the things is, the way Red Zone is designed, the way Adaptive is designed, the way Champion AI, the way we've thought about it, everything has been thought by putting the employer, the frontline worker at the center. How do we facilitate and amplify the potential of this frontline worker? And in fact, to your point about, you mentioned the previous conversation or the previous question, is there a worry about people on the shop floor, job losses, etc.? Well, I'm telling you, every time you look at it, the facts are very clear. There's 500,000 open jobs today. Mm-hmm. We're struggling to get new talent and excite talent to come into manufacturing. So I don't think that is an issue so much in manufacturing. I think manufacturing's got the other side of an issue, which is how does manufacturing cope with the requirements that are going to happen with 2 to 3 trillion investment coming in? Now, on that, as manufacturers expand, as they run their operations, et cetera, obviously they have to be conscious about those aspects, sustainability, et cetera. And those are thoughts that are built into the way Adaptive is designed, the way Champion AI addresses, particularly on, the employee engagement, the employee motivation. That is something that is just the core and the center of Red Zone, for example.
Right. Yeah, makes total sense. Here's a question from the audience. I'm going to change this question a little bit. I'm going to broaden it just to open it up a little bit more and not quite so specific. But this is from Nav on LinkedIn. Nav says, could you share examples of agentic AI tools currently being used by large enterprises running, he says, Oracle or SAP or ERP environments, but I'll just broaden that to just other, let's call it non-QAD vendors. Is QAD working with, well, let me finish this question. I'll sort of add my spin to it. But he goes on to say many AI products may not meet enterprise grade governance, security, and risk requirements. So I'm particularly interested in solutions that have already been validated and deployed at scale. So I guess, rather than focusing, unless you want to, you can focus on SAP and Oracle if you want, but I'm just thinking more looking at the broader manufacturing tech ecosystem, whether it's a non-QAD ERP system, or we talked about MES and PLM before. Obviously, AI is its own tool that you guys provide. How do you see, first of all, let me back up. Is QAD a product that would play nice with other non-QAD solutions? Like if I've got a legacy system that, an old version of SAP or Microsoft Dynamics or whatever, could I put in these QAD tools to better leverage those capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the way we've designed Champion AI, Red Zone, and Adaptive. You don't need to be a QAD house to be able to leverage the capability. So for example, Champion AI could very well work across the entire landscape of applications that you have. It can help you bring in all the data and the information and leverage the agents, the agentic layer, to be able to, kind of really serve that intelligence to your employee on the front line. Number one. Number two, Red Zone, which is the connected workforce solution, is built with, open APIs to every solution. It's built with APIs to SAP, to ServiceNow, to Workday, any kind of application that is being used by the manufacturers today. Our systems are open and they connect with. So that's number one. And I think that's really important in today's world, because we don't require our clients to make changes or have to reinvest or have to spend more money on their existing landscape. That is lost. I would call that is money that doesn't need to be spent. The money needs to be focused more on how do they drive real outcomes for their business. First thing. The second thing is, I think, that this question is very important. Trust is not negotiable. Simple. Every recommendation or every action from Champion AI is explainable, logged, and auditable. Very simple. We call it AI with guardrails. So for example, that problem that I was talking about, inventory carrying cost. The agent, does that optimization and that simulation and comes up with recommendations to the human planner to say, if you change your replenishment levels like this, if you change your lead times by that, this is the outcome you can get. Would you like to do that? And so there is a confidence of control, and this is the balance that makes adoption sustainable at scale, number one. And I think that is, irrespective of who the provider of these capabilities is, that is non-negotiable. That has to be at the base. And I think, in fairness, all our competition are also, working on this principle. Now, you mentioned some of the big players like SAP, Oracle. I think what I see a lot is these companies have to, they're obviously public listed companies and have to, kind of please the market with all the noise around AI and all their capabilities around AI. And so there seems to be a plethora of announcement about thousands and thousands of agents. And I don't see what's the big thing about having thousands of agents. I think we need to talk about what is the real outcome? What is that specifically doing for the client? And do we have a client that is willing to stand up and attest to that outcome? And that's what I don't see, by the way, in these large companies. I don't see customers standing up and talking about great outcomes that they've achieved through all these agentic capabilities these companies are launching. And that is where we are focused. We're focused on getting our clients to speak about, things that they're achieving. I can show you umpteen number of clients that stand up and talk about the 26% productivity gains that they've had. I can talk to you about clients that talk about 81% more engagement on their frontline. So that's where our attention is, and I think that's what I see the larger companies are not able to show you.
Yeah, and in the flip side too, just to add to that, you also look at how their pricing models work, and you're starting to see some of these vendors that say, "Hey, if we deploy tens of thousands of agents, now I can charge you for tens of thousands of agents, and I'm going to charge you more than if I only had 1,000 agents." Regardless of whether or not you're actually going to use all those agents. To your point, you're probably not. Yep. Especially not in the short term, but they can price their software differently or more favorably, I suppose, to them, the vendors, if they do that.
Yeah, you remember in the older times, Eric, software was sold, right, like perpetual licenses. and you know how much of software just sat on the shelf. Nobody ever used it, right? And so, the focus has really got to be on deployment, and it has got to be on outcome. And so that's where our attention is.
I'm so glad my kids didn't hear you just say that I remember the olden times, because if they would have heard that, they would have latched onto that, and it made me reminded me how old I really am. So I guess just to bring this all full circle, and while I'm asking you this question, I'm going to pop up again on the screen. Again, I'll drop it in the chat as soon as we're done here. You'll see it in the chat below. But the registration for Champions in Manufacturing, the one coming up in North America, is mid-November, here in just 2 weeks. I'll be seeing you guys in just a couple weeks, not next week, but the week after. Or no, I'm sorry, it's next week. The end of next week is when it is. So it's I believe it's Thursday, Friday of next week. Still time to register. You want to learn more about it, scan this QR code here in front of you, or go to the link below. But while I'm leaving that up for people to scan and just to learn more about the event, when you look ahead 3 to 5 years, what do you think is going to separate manufacturing organizations that are thriving and excelling and really leveraging technology to become more efficient, more scalable, and effective? What do you think is going to separate those two organizations, the manufacturers that are super successful and the ones that aren't? What do you think is going to separate them?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Eric. And great question. I would say, look, I think this is, as I said, this is an amazing opportunity for manufacturing. It is, the future of manufacturing is being defined, or let's say redefined. And the funny thing is that the winners are not going to be the biggest manufacturers. Actually, the winners are going to be those that really move with pace, those that are very fast, adaptive, and human-centered. Those are going to be the winners in this new age. And they're the ones that are not just using data to kind of sort of report the past, or just record the past. They're using data to drive action in the present. They are the ones that are empowering every worker, every machine to contribute performance in real time. And so, that's what our QAD manufacturing platform is built for. It's built for transforming manufacturing, as I said, from a system of record to a system of action. And we are really focused on something that does not stop learning, it does not stop improving, and does not stop growing. And I think that's what's going to differentiate, those that shape this next shape of manufacturing.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense. It's an exciting time to be in the space, and you've taken on this new role, a very exciting time in the enterprise tech space. So it's really cool to see a legacy company that's been around for a long time. You guys have been around for decades now, and just seeing this total shift, total evolution of the company, everything from the rebranding to the product strategy. And it sounds like you've been very busy the last 6 months, I can tell. So it's
been very exciting. And thank you so much, Eric. It's been awesome talking to you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. I got the dates up here on the screen, so you can see it, November 12 to 14. I just can't believe it's November already, which is why I was confused as to when that event was. But November 12 to 14 in Dallas is the next one. You can also see when other events are coming up. If they want to learn more about QAD, QAD.com. I assume you can go to that website, book a demo, or talk to a sales rep or whatever if you just want to learn more about the product line. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we want you to come to Dallas and come and see. Troy Aikman's going to be on the stage with me. He's going to talk about, what does it take to be a real and true champion? And it's going to be a very exciting event. So you don't want to miss it.
Yeah, likewise. That'll be great. And I'll be interviewing you and others from the team there for this podcast. So it'll be great to see you guys in person, and to hope to see many of you there. And if you are planning to attend, please feel free to reach out to both of us. Let us both know that you'll be there. And appreciate you being here, Sanjay. Appreciate the great questions from the audience. We'll be back again, same time. Well, actually, this was a special edition of the podcast. We do these typically on Tuesdays. We've got another one coming up tomorrow, and then every Tuesday going forward from there. So thank you for being here, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you so much, Eric. Take care. Bye-bye.
You bet. Thanks, Sanjay.